Jeff, what the hell is this? My wife Emma stood over my chair, holding a piece of notebook paper in one hand and a used book in the other. I didn't have time to read a book I recently bought online from a second-hand bookseller, and it sat in the bookcase with the others on my to-read shelf. For some reason, I ignored the piece of paper and focused on the book because I thought that was what she was asking. But I was puzzled since Emma never got upset when I bought books. In fact, she usually reads and appreciates the books I choose. This is The Wrong Man, James Neff's in-depth investigation into Sam Shepard's murder of his wife. You know, the fugitive. Now it was Emma's turn to be puzzled. "Not a book, mister." She thrust a piece of paper from a notebook under my nose. This. Now she was practically screaming. I walked over to take the piece of paper. Emma seemed reluctant to let him go, as if it was something important, but she finally released it. I stood up from my leather reading chair, put down Kafka's Judgment that I was reading, and read the words on the paper. It was handwritten in what was clearly a woman's handwriting. "Jeff, what you need to do is divorce this witch you are married to before she drives you so crazy that you kill her one day. I will wait for you, but I won't wait forever. Your love, Skin P.S. Just to let you know, you've had sex with me for the last time until I see the divorce papers signed." I reread the note twice, trying to make some sense out of it all. Was this someone's joke? I looked up from the note and saw the fire in Emma's eyes. "Emma, I have no idea who this came from or what it means. Where did you find this?" Emma handed the book to me. "It was in your book. Don't play dumb just because you were stupid as hell and left it there." I spent the next half hour trying to explain that the book had been purchased online and I had not had a chance to review it. The note must have belonged to the previous owner, but what are the odds that the owner's name was the same as mine? Talk about a perfect storm. The timing couldn't have been worse. First of all, last year I made the mistake of getting close to one of the women in the office. Sharon Roberts and I flirted a little, and it ended one night when we went out to dinner. Our first dinner together. Sharon got down to business and proposed to me. I gave in to temptation. This was at a time when my marriage to Emma was at its peak. We both spent too little time on our marriage and too much time at our respective jobs trying to win over our bosses. Plus, Sharon is built like a dream come true. I didn't give in to temptation. If anything, Sharon's suggestion awakened a glimmer of reality and conscience in my foggy brain. I knew I had to come home and fix my marriage. I loved Emma. When I got home that evening, I told Emma that we needed to fix what I thought was broken, but I made the terrible mistake of admitting my near indiscretion. Things weren't easy for a few weeks, but I managed to convince Emma that she was the only woman in my life. She seemed to believe me until Emma found a note inside the book tonight. Secondly, I have been spending more time in the office over the past 3 months. It was legal. I was in line for a nice bonus and possibly a promotion if I could complete my current project on time and on budget. I had several good reasons for wanting this promotion, but one of these reasons outweighed all the others. It was no secret that Emma's parents believed that she had married beneath her station. Emma's father was the chief financial officer of the largest independent bank in the state. He was an Ivy Leaguer, and Emma's mother was a Vassar graduate. Emma went to Princeton and I graduated from Kent State. My MBA from Wharton hardly made an impression on her parents' world. With a promotion, I would be on my way to the top. But time spent away from home has recently become a point of contention. Third, Emma has been spending more time lately with her mother, a woman who has never been warm to me or my relationship with her daughter. Last week, Emma and I had a pretty serious argument about time spent at work. Words were spoken, some unpleasant on both sides. But the worst part is that when Emma said that her mother was right about me, that I was a traitor, and not worthy of her, I called her mother a witch. Yes, I used the same word that the writer of the mysterious note used to describe Jeff's other wife. Could this nightmare get any worse? Yes, it could have happened, and it did. By now you are probably doubting my story. Many of you are thinking, "Give up! You've been caught!" But I swear I'm innocent. I ended up falling asleep on the couch after I couldn't convince Emma that the note wasn't mine. Emma locked our bedroom door. On Thursday, I came into work and told my boss that I needed to give up the extra hours for a while. He himself got divorced and said that he understands. I brought Emma a bouquet of flowers. At least she didn't throw them in the trash. She even thanked me when she put them in the vase. That night we slept together, but the frost remained in the air. By Friday evening, everything had still not the wed. Emma decided to spend the weekend at her parents' house. It wouldn't help. I asked Emma not to leave, but she said she needed time to cool down and think. I almost said that her mother was the last person she should have cooled down and thought with, but I knew enough to keep my mouth shut. There was no point in putting her on the defensive, which was what always happened when the topic of her relatives came up. I spent the weekend looking at these flowers and wondering what could restore my marriage. I took our dog Samson for a long walk and thought about it a lot. I really loved Emma. On Saturday evening, I sent her a message. "Would you consider counseling?" The answer was short. "We'll talk when I get home Sunday night." Sunday came and went. On Sunday evening, I received a second message. "I drank too much at dinner. I'll be home on Monday." I was starting to get angry. I was innocent as hell. I knew her mother's weekend was a bad idea. Emma actually came home early on Monday, just before I left for work. I received a half-hearted kiss and let's talk in the evening before she ran upstairs to get dressed for work. I was working full-time on Monday, but left work in time to get Chinese takeout when she walked through the door at 7. The meal was quiet, not friendly, but relatively polite. We opened the fortune cookies and I poured a couple of glasses of aperitif. Emma started the conversation. "Jeff, I don't trust you. And this is a disgusting way to treat your husband. Mom says I should cut my losses and leave. Let's not drag your mother into this conversation. You know she never liked me. Let's limit ourselves to what you and I want and need. I need space and time to think. I suggest you move into the spare bedroom until we sort this out. I didn't like this idea. What married couple makes amends in separate rooms? How about what I suggested? Consultation. Perhaps, but not right now. Right now, I need time to think for myself. I couldn't help it. Does thinking for yourself apply to your mother? Mom wants only the best for me. If I need to talk to my mom, I will." That was the end of it that evening. I moved my things into the spare room and barely slept that night. I met Emma while doing consulting work for an NGO where she was an intern. It was a full year after I graduated from Wharton that one of the Big Four accounting firms hired me. After my first full year of work, I was assigned to help an NGO with their computer systems. This was voluntary work. Our regional manager was on the board of the NGO, and I was assigned to them during the transition. This turned out to be beneficial in every way. The NGO had a new server system, and I met my future bride. Emma Taylor was graduating from Princeton in the fall and spending the summer as an unpaid intern. The more time I spent with this woman, the more I fell in love. We dated all summer. Emma was smart, confident, and most importantly, had the body and face of a Victoria's Secret angel. Although Emma came from high society, I was especially impressed by how well she treated everyone in the office, from the postal clerks to the president. Always said, "Please," "Thank you," or other kind words. Physically, Emma was out of my league. I'm a nice guy, and big enough to play tight end at Kent State. Emma's height of 175 centimeters looks good next to my 195 centimeters, even when she wore 12-centimeter heels. Where we differed was in social status. Emma is the only child of two people whose backgrounds were not typically the same as my middle-class parents. My mom taught second grade at a Catholic school and my dad owned a machine shop. I am one of 4 children, all college graduates and all fairly successful middle-class people. Mom and Dad were rightfully proud of their children. My mom and Dad instilled in us a work ethic that helped me succeed. After 2 years of working at an accounting firm, I was hired by one of our clients. We have just completed a successful consulting engagement with TMG2 Engineering. where we saved the company millions in the transition from mainframe to server computing. TMG2 offered me a job. This meant I wouldn't have to travel, and my salary was comparable. I'm still working at TMG2. I currently work as a project manager in the IT department. My project was to convert our systems to what was then the new concept of cloud computing. Few companies our size have moved to the cloud. I was responsible for convincing the board to do this, if everything worked as well as I expected, and as I promised our board. I had a chance to get the CIO position that was offered. Until now, the IT department had been led by the CFO, and he had been a strong advocate for the creation of the new position. I woke up Tuesday morning in the guest bedroom, and it took me a few moments to get my bearings, but when I came downstairs, the coffee was ready. Emma was upstairs in the shower, and for a moment I considered joining her, but decided to give her the time she asked for. After drinking a cup of coffee, I went to the guest bathroom and got ready for work. The situation remained tense throughout the week. Emma spent long days at work, so I decided to do the same and return to my project. I think my boss was happy. He probably thought my marriage problems were solved, and I hadn't given anything away. On Friday afternoon, I sent Emma a message. "Can I take you out to dinner tonight? Restaurant of your choice." 10 long minutes later, I received her reply. "I'm going to my mom's for the whole weekend." It was ridiculous, and I called her immediately. She answered kindly, "How can we work on our marriage or your trust issues if you're not home? I told you that I needed time, but only a week has passed. You must respect my wishes." I tried my best to remain calm and explain to her my reasons for staying the weekend. But all my reasons fell on deaf ears. She finally agreed to consider my third request for consultation. "Will we see you before you leave for Manhattan tonight?" "No, I've already packed my things. I'll probably be back on Monday evening. I stay the weekend and drive straight to work from New York. Another weekend, just me and Samson. For 2 more days, we are trying to figure out how to fix what is broken." On Saturday, I had an idea. I looked up the number of the used bookstore where I bought The Wrong Man and spoke to the clerk. "Hi, I bought a used copy of The Wrong Man from your store. You sent it to me 3 weeks ago." Inside was a romantic note addressed to one Jeff. It just so happens that this is also my name. My wife found the note and is accusing me of having an affair. I need to talk to Jeff, who owns the book. The salesman actually had the nerve to laugh. "Boy, what are the chances? A book called The Wrong Man, owned by 2 guys named Jeff, with a love note inside. The seller drove me crazy. Look, this isn't funny. My wife needs some assurance that I am not the Jeff who received the note from this woman. Does your system track buyers and sellers?" "Yes, if the guy is registered with us. Many people who sell us their used books have accounts, and they are in our system. But I can't give you a name or phone number." "Okay, what if you take down my name and number and contact the other Jeff and ask him to call me?" "I can do it. What's your name so I can track the book?" "Jeff Parker." "Do you like the author?" I was puzzled. "Which author?" He laughed again. "T. Jefferson Parker. He writes detective stories." This conversation was stupid, but I had to ask. "What does the letter T mean?" "I don't know. Maybe Thomas? Your guess is as correct as mine." "I've never heard of him. I don't read detective fiction." "Okay, forget about this, Parker. I'm Jeffrey Parker, not Jefferson, and I don't have a T in my name." I gave him my phone number and was pleasantly surprised to hear my phone ring 20 minutes later. "My name is Jeff, and I was told that you had a note that you found written to me." Is this some kind of blackmail? "No, this is not blackmail. I bought the book, The Wrong Man, that belonged to you. Inside was a note from a woman named Skin. I need you to tell my wife that the note was written to you, not me." "Was there a note in the book?" "Damn, I've been looking everywhere for that stupid bitch's note. If my wife found her, I would be finished. I can't believe it ended up in that book." "Jeff, pay attention. I need you to tell my wife what happened." "No way, dude. I dodged that bullet. I'm still married and I'm going to keep it a secret." He hung up. It took me 5 minutes to calm down and collect my thoughts. I dialed the number that was listed in the received calls log of my mobile phone. He replied, "Hello? Jeff, this is Jeff." I changed my mind. This is chantage. If you do not send me a notarized statement that Terry sent you a love note, your wife will receive a notarized letter from me with a copy of Terry's note. How do you like it, dude? This is bad. It probably hasn't been this bad in my house since my wife found Terry's note. Okay, fine, but you promise that this is the end, right? I promise. Just send the application, and remember, it must be notarized, otherwise my wife won't believe it. Here is my address. Don't hesitate and do it early this week. Emma and I worked for an NGO and dated exclusively for 5 weeks when we first made love. It was very vanilla. Although sex the first time was vanilla, it was different from all my previous encounters with women. All my senses came alive at once. My tongue tasted the red wine we drank at dinner, and my eyes saw something special in her eyes as she looked back at me. I smelled its unique scent. Later, I found out that it was Creed Millesime. It became my favorite gift for many years. I realized that this is how sex differs from lovemaking. Emma must have felt it too, because then she hugged me tightly and whispered, "I love you." Years later, at 2 different social events, I had the opportunity to meet 2 of her previous boyfriends. They were both slightly feminine, very harmless, preppy-looking types. After meeting the second guy, I had to wonder what first attracted Emma to the former college football player, someone so radically different from the others. During that first summer, we made love every few days. Emma controlled her emotions when it came to sex, so it wasn't an after-every-date event. For the first time, I uttered the words, "I love you." This was the beginning of our true love. Very slowly, Emma began to try new positions, but she never became explicit. No dirty talk in bed. Whatever conservative upbringing she had never completely disappeared. By the end of the summer, Emma and I had become very exclusive. I spent most weekends traveling the 60 miles to Princeton. We spent Thanksgiving at her parents' apartment near Central Park. Although her mother was not openly hostile, the coldness emanating from her was obvious, but I assumed that I would eventually win her favor. Most people react positively when I try to make friends. Emma spent the winter holidays with me, visiting my parents. Emma showed no signs of discomfort during the week we spent at my parents' house, a small but cozy craftsman-style home popular in their Columbus suburb. My parents liked Emma, and she reciprocated. Emma's parents did not interfere while we were dating. Looking back, I think Lois and Jonathan Taylor assumed it was just a passing fancy for her. It was her first exclusive relationship that lasted more than a few months. Their approach was to sit back and let it fade away naturally. This approach has always worked in the past, and there's no reason to think it wouldn't work for the Ohio jerk. By June, we were engaged. With a decent income and a relatively stable work schedule at TMG2, I asked Emma to marry me, and she agreed. Emma appreciated that we would be living in Philadelphia and visiting her parents in Manhattan would not be a problem. Now that I proposed and Emma accepted, her mom panicked and went to great lengths to get Emma to change her mind. Emma stood up to her mother, insisting that I was the one and she was getting married. Her mother eventually agreed, helped plan the wedding, but never stopped trying to undermine our marriage in very subtle ways. I didn't find out how serious she was until much later. Her parents' attitude also complicated my recent choice. Should I be willing to spend more time with my wife, who now has her own career, or spend that time busting her ass at work so she can become a C-level manager at my company, earn a position and income she can be proud of, and maybe show her parents that she didn't make a mistake in choosing me as husbands? This is the same choice that many young professionals face. Not many people find the perfect balance. Emma's mood had not improved by the time she returned from her parents' house on the Monday after that second weekend. I decided to wait until I received a letter from the other Jeff before approaching her and continued sleeping in the guest room. I also did something I swear I would never do. I read her emails. While Emma showered and got ready on Tuesday morning, I opened her laptop and logged into her email program. There were too many to read in a short period of time. I connected an external hard drive and dumped the contents of her inbox and other folders. Of course, like the vast majority of computer users, Emma was unable to delete the emails after they were deleted. I had enough time to read 2 emails from her mother before turning off her laptop, and I knew that further reading would lead to some exceeding discoveries. After Emma left for work, I read for an hour. I felt terrible for violating Emma's privacy, but I had no choice. Her mother and I were in a war for Emma's mind and our marriage. All fair, right? Plus, the emails proved that I was right to be concerned. In one, her mother encouraged Emma to transfer to her company's New York office and move to the city. There was also an email from some guy, Grant Martin, mentioning a dinner party at her parents' house that they were both attending and wanting to start a correspondence. As cold as our relationship had been, reading Emma's emails gave me great hope for our future. In response to her mother's sarcastic comments, Emma confessed her love for me and her hope that our marriage would survive. Her mother was equally adamant that there was little hope. In more than one email, she mentioned my confession regarding Sharon Roberts, basically telling Emma that I must have cheated on her with Sharon and who knows how many other women, including this last one. Referring to the note from Terry, Emma's only email to Grant Martin was a reply to his email. She reminded him that she was married and expressed hope that our marriage could be saved. She asked him to respect her wishes to be left alone. I spent my free time on Tuesday reading all of this. On Tuesday evening, I returned home in a good mood, which only improved when I checked my email. There was a letter from another Jeff. He must have really wanted this to end. I tore the envelope open, and there it was, a notarized statement confirming that he was the Jeff who owned the book, and left a note inside from Terry. He even apologized for the problems it caused. Emma came home that evening with grilled steaks, a salad, and a bottle of Merlot. We ate before I handed her a letter from the other Jeff. As Emma read the letter, her eyes became misty. She got up from her chair, sat on my lap, and kissed me. This makes me very happy, Jeff. Almost as happy as you are to hold you in my arms again. Too much time has passed. Then take me to bed and let's make love. I picked her up, carried her up the stairs, and laid her on the bed. The urgency of the situation prevented any of us from consciously realizing that the curtains on the windows were still open, and the street light streaming through the window illuminated the room. Emma lay on her back and looked at me expectantly. It's been too long since we were last together. I decided that we both needed the physical and emotional act of lovemaking more than sex. Whatever the reason, she was as beautiful as I had ever seen her. As beautiful as the day I lifted her wedding veil to kiss my bride so many years ago. This act of love was only the first of 3 that night. Having finished, we lay there, catching our breath and bringing our heartbeats back to normal. I couldn't tell what Emma was thinking, especially after the last few weeks. Despite Emma's declaration of love during our lovemaking, I was worried and wondered if the last hours of passion meant that something was about to change. The optimist in me felt that maybe we could start working on our marriage and family. After recent events and until tonight, I would wonder if this was a goodbye, Jeff, for old time's sake. Emma was silent, and I decided to wait for her out. Would you like a glass of wine? Yes, Jeff. There should be a bottle of Chardonnay in the refrigerator. Could you pour me a glass, please? Certainly. Dilute with water? No, I don't want to pee all night. Only wine, thank you. I went down to the kitchen, poured her some wine, and grabbed a beer for myself. I placed the wine on her bedside table and leaned down to kiss her. I saw the determination on Emma's face as I lay down next to her. You don't know what it's like, Jeff. Wondering if your mother and father love you, or if you are just another fashion accessory of society. Think about how differently you were raised. How your mother and father welcomed me into their lives, even when I first met them. Then compare that to how my mother and father treat you. I interrupted her. They never liked me. Emma gave me her look, the same one she gave me every time I interrupted her. Do you think this only concerns you? How many times have you seen any warmth towards me, their own daughter? I had to admit that this was rare, but I only assumed it was a reaction to her marrying me. I remained silent and nodded for her to continue. Now, imagine that you are a little girl, and this is how your parents react to your presence. And when you turn 10, you are sent to boarding school. I never thought they didn't like you. I only assumed that they treated you the same way they always treated me, with cold indifference. Tell me, Emma, what does this have to do with our love and marriage? Why did this suddenly become important to you? Because 3 or 4 months ago, my mom called me and we went out to lunch. Mom said she wanted to reconnect and was sorry about how distant we had become. She was throwing an emotional lifeline into our relationship, and I admit, I wanted that. Since then, she and I began to spend more time together. She told me how proud she was of me graduating summa cum laude from Princeton and was very complimentary about my career. I told my mother that we were thinking about children. I admit that she advised me to wait. Her mom said that's what derailed her career when her dad insisted she get pregnant. She feels like she was too young to have a child, which is one of the reasons she thinks we were never close. She blames her father for this and says you are doing the same to me. You make me lose my individuality and all self-realization. I was taken aback by this last statement. Emma, this is too ironic. Last year it was you who started talking about children. When I hesitated, you decided that we should get a dog to test our paternal instincts, as you put it. We had Samson, and a few months ago I came to the realization that we were ready, that we will make excellent parents. Now your mom says I want you to be pregnant and walk around the kitchen barefoot? She didn't say that. It is the same. Emma, it sounds like Lois is driving a wedge between us. Yes, we talked about children. I started raising my voice, which was never good. Emma reacted. Mom wishes me only the best. This was the second time in 2 weeks that Emma had used those exact words. I remembered the movie The Stepford Wives, in which all the wives were obedient slaves to their husbands. What if I'm dealing with Stepford's daughter? I need this, Jeff. I need a relationship with at least one of my parents. You've been pampered all your life. 2 loving parents, 3 loving siblings. I need my mom in my life. I almost asked, what about us? But knew better than to ask, because in the mood Emma was in right now, she would interpret it as selfishness on my part. Plus, I had to be careful. The last thing I could afford was to reveal my cards regarding what I learned from reading her emails, but I had to ask. Do you have someone else, Emma? Emma sat up and looked me straight in the face. Her eyes burned through mine. Hell no, Jeff. Nobody here. I would never cheat on you. I had to defend myself. I'm worried about all these weekends in New York. I worry. You are an attractive woman, and I know that your parents have an active social life. I know that men will definitely like you, and they will ask you out on a date. Have I said too much? Emma's answer didn't sound like she suspected anything. I only attended one dinner party, which my parents threw last weekend at their home. One of my father's employees was there, but you don't need to worry. He wasn't there on purpose. I kept my mouth shut and only responded by putting my arm around her shoulders and kissing her. My bottle of beer and Emma's glass of wine were empty by this time. I turned off the nightlight and we exchanged, I love you. I rolled over and closed my eyes, hoping to get some sleep and forget about my fears for a couple of hours. That's it for a magical reconciliation, I thought to myself. The next evening, I checked Emma's phone while she was cooking dinner. Hell, there were 2 calls from her mother today, and both lasted over 30 minutes. I was screwed. During dinner, I took a chance. Emma, would you like to spend the weekend on the beach? I could rent a room for Fire Island. Emma had the tact to look guilty. Sorry, Jeff. Mom called today, and she has 2 tickets to see The Merchant of Venice with Al Pacino. She invited me to join her on Saturday evening. Can we go to the coast next weekend, please? Yes, sure. Next weekend. At least I was sleeping in my own bed again. We slept together, but we didn't make love. On Thursday morning, I made a decision. I had the email addresses of my mother-in-law and Grant Martin, and the war was about to escalate with them. What I did next would have resulted in me being fired, losing my job in any IT department, and possibly going to jail, if I had been caught. I sent fake emails to Lois Taylor and Grant Martin. Both emails appeared to come from a well-known online business and contained a link that, when opened, infected both of their computers with two different viruses. One virus allowed me to remotely access every computer, and the other was a keylogger virus that recorded everything I typed on the keyboard, including user IDs and passwords. Grant Martin and Lois Taylor, like many people who are victims of the scam, would never have known that their computers had been infected. Our wedding was what anyone who grew up in high society would expect. Despite Lois Taylor's feelings for me and her hostility toward this alliance, it was her time to put on a show. My parents, brother, and sisters were there with their spouses and children, but we kept the other guest list to a minimum. Mr. and Mrs. Taylor showed no such restraint. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry was invited and probably attended. What a farce. One thing really surprised the hell out of me. Jonathan Taylor walked Emma down the aisle with what appeared to be tears in his eyes. He gave me her hand and for the first time said something, addressing me directly. Quietly, so quietly that no one else could overhear him from behind the organ playing Mendelssohn, he said, "Take care of her, please." That was before he turned and sat down next to the Ice Maiden, my new mother-in-law. The reception took place at their country club. I tried my best to smile at all these idiots who came to suck up to my relatives. I think my mom, dad, and siblings rolled their eyes hard enough and often enough to get a spanking. At some point, my father, brother, and two sisters cornered me. My dad said it best. "Jeff, Emma is a damn sweet and beautiful woman, but good luck with your new family." All four laughed, raising a toast to my happiness. The first years of our marriage were wonderful. There were ups and downs. Emma and I enjoyed success in our chosen careers and ultimately managed to find a rewarding balance between work and play. I'm guessing her parents called a truce. Because we lived in Philadelphia, far enough from Manhattan that the constant interruptions were inconvenient, the truce lasted until recently. We even started talking about kids recently, but being the overeducated, overcompensated city dwellers that we are, we did what every couple in a similar situation does. We got a dog to make sure we were ready for parenting. Then came the big decision, rescue dog or purebred. We probably spent as much time discussing our choice as we did purchasing our first apartment. In the end, we compromised, which translates to, we bought a puppy that Emma fell in love with while spending a weekend in the Finger Lakes wine country. Samson was the most representative of a litter of a lab mom and an unknown male. Of course, now I have to imitate every other dog owner and drone on for hours about why Samson is the smartest, cutest dog in the world. But let's keep it short and just say it's true. You'll just have to take my word for it. After a year with Samson, we knew we were ready to have kids. Emma was ready to go off the pills when all this shit came out. By Thursday evening, both Grant and Lois had opened my fake emails, and both computers were infected with two viruses. Now I was able to read all of their emails. What I learned amazed me. Grant Martin had an affair with Emma's mother. There were no tender, heartfelt expressions of passion or infatuation, just a few emails suggesting secret meetings. Neither Thursday evening nor Friday. I had time to delve deeper into their various folders. I still needed to focus on my project at work, but I found a critical email from Lois to Grant. "Grant, I have attached electronic tickets to this letter for Saturday's performance. Try to remember, this is not a date for Emma. You're just doing me a favor by taking Emma when I feign illness on Saturday. Good luck, be as charming as always, and she will begin to understand what a loser she married. Lois." I opened the attachment and found a PDF containing 2 tickets to Saturday's performance of The Merchant of Venice. This email only added to the mystery. If my mother-in-law is having sex with Grant Martin, why is she setting him up with Emma? I'm not usually a resourceful person, so perhaps the answer was beyond the comprehension of my straightforward brain. I decided to go to New York and find out for myself how far this would go. I placed Samson in a local nursery and slept very restlessly. After Emma left in the morning, I boarded the train to Manhattan and considered my options. I was still in love with Emma and thought there had to be some way to save our marriage. By the time I arrived at Penn Station, I had a game plan. I bought a Yankees cap and a baseball jacket, a cheap camera, and a bag of almonds. To kill 2 hours, I went to a deli on 43rd Street that had a great Reuben. I tried not to drink too much coffee or water. It could have been a long night. At 6:30, I was sitting on a park bench across the street from her parents' apartment. I had been there no more than 15 minutes when I heard a voice next to me. "What against sea are you from?" I turned around and saw a pretty lady standing. "What do you have in mind?" "Well, you are obviously watching this building. I believe you are following someone. So, what detective agency do you work for?" "I'm not at the agency. My wife's parents live there, and I think she's planning to go on a date with another man tonight. I'm just watching to see if she follows through with it or not." "I'm sorry to hear it, but it explains why you're so bad at it." "Look, don't be so obvious. What kind of camera is this? You would have to be within 7 meters of them to take any clear pictures." She opened her coat to show me a nice Canon with a zoom lens. "Here, come away with me. When you see your wife, point to her. I'll take some decent pictures for you." "Why do you need to help me?" "For $100, which you will give me when I send it to you by email. Trust me, they will be worth your money." "Why did you decide that I was spying on someone?" "Because a quarter of the people in this part of the park are private detectives watching one of those 4 buildings across the street. Plus a Yankees cap. Every out-of-town private investigator puts on a Yankees or Mets cap when he comes into town, thinking he'll blend in with the crowd. I took you for a private detective from some provincial town, pursuing a wayward wife. However, I didn't think you were a goat husband." Her words hurt, but she continued her monologue. "This part of the city is a breeding ground for traitors and a gold mine for detectives. Too much money and too little morality. Everyone has a right here. I'm watching the building next to yours, waiting for some rich lawyer to walk out the door with his mistress. His wife is out of town, and she hired us to get some evidence of what he's up to. It's probably mating season. I'll still be here tonight to take pictures when the 2 of them return from dinner. It's going to be a long night." She extended her hand. "I'm Karen with an A. I watched Emma's building while my new friend talked. Men and women came and went. The doorman opened the front door and the doors of any taxi or limousine for residents. I didn't know what Grant looked like, so all I could do was wait for Emma to walk out the door and see who she was with. As soon as Karen finished her introduction, Emma walked out with a man who I took to be Grant. Here they are." Karen raised the camera, and the shutter clicked several times. She was damn fast. She must have taken at least 4 pictures before they got into the taxi and headed south. "They caught them? Now what? Now I'll focus on the building next door. According to my sources, it's still too early for them. Let's come over here and sit for a minute." We went and sat on a park bench in front of a nearby building. "Business first. If you send me your email address, I will send photos. It will cost you $100. If you want, I'll take some pictures when they come back, if I can get them. Are you ready to part with another $100? "Certainly." "Okay, I'll tell you what. If you tell me the name of this asshole, for another $300, I'll do some digging and tell you something about the past. If we do this, we should sign a contract so that everything is legal." "Should I sign a contract with your agency?" "No, I'm a freelancer. Tonight I'm working as a contractor for an agency hired by a lawyer's wife." "And is it normal that I hired you and not the agency?" "Yes, as long as it doesn't interfere with what I'm currently contracted for. I can still do my own thing. This is not a conflict." I sent Karen a message with my email address and Grant's full name. We chatted a bit. For some reason, I told Karen the lowdown on why I was trying to save a marriage that seemed to be in deep shit. Karen was a great listener. My curiosity got the better of me. How did this petite lady end up as a private detective? My preconceived notions, based on my love of film noir and detective films of the 40s, made me imagine Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe. Karen laughed when I asked my question. "I spent 15 years with the NYPD, the last 6 years in their intelligence division, working in the fight against terrorism. I was shot in the league, lost everything below the knee, and ended up disabled. She bent down and lifted her trouser leg. Damn it! It was a prosthetic. I decided to use what I learned to earn some money, but I set my own hours. So far, it's worked. I rarely work on weekends like I do today. This was a special favor for a friend from the agency. During the conversation, Karen whipped out her camera again and began photographing the couple getting into a limousine across the street. Are you going to follow them to the restaurant? No. This is probably not a place where you can do anything without getting caught. I'll eat somewhere outside, then sit here and wait for them to return. 9 times out of 10, these couples have dinner together and then return to the love nest for a night of sex. There's not much romance in these cases. What does the mistress get from this, besides food? You would be surprised. Some of these women earn as much as a good secretary. You just have to be willing to sell your soul and let some old, fat, bald master of the universe have sex with you. No thanks. Karen laughed at that last part. What about wives? Probably half of our business. Some poor soul working 60 hours a week finally realizes that some clown is getting most or all of what should be his. Do you want to know the worst thing? This is when the DNA comes back and the children are not his. It always ends in nuclear war. I once had a client who broke into his ex-wife's house, sat on her bed, and shot himself. It must have hurt her conscience. No, that's not true. This poor slob didn't know that his wife was out of town. The damn housekeeper found the body. By the time the ex returned home from a spa week in Cannes, the house was clean. The bed has been replaced, the walls have been repainted, and my client has already been cremated. The ashes went to his mother. There aren't many happy endings in this business. After that, we sat for another minute. I wondered deeply whether my story would end badly. I wasn't going to die, but if we divorced, I would miss my wife. Look, don't take this the wrong way. If you're going out to eat, can I treat you? She looked at me before answering. No, Jeff. Go home. I'm going to meet my husband at a diner. I've already sent him a message, and he'll be there in 10 minutes. Karen raised her ring finger. As observant as I was, I didn't even notice the ring there. We got up from the park bench and walked. I have now also noticed a slight limp. I guess I must be self-absorbed and wallowing in self-pity. I decided to talk about something other than myself. It must be hard to be married when you see all this disgrace. Is this affecting your marriage? This applies to many of my colleagues. Some people can't get past all the crap they see. I am a very happy woman. My husband Bill knows what I go through at work. He does both small and big things to let me know I am loved. Let's take this evening, for example. I know his mom is looking after our 2 boys, so he can meet me here and have a quick bite to eat together. We continued walking and talking. As we approached the diner, I could make out the silhouette of a large man. As we got closer, I could tell that Bill was a very fit, handsome man. He was my height, but he probably weighed 15 kilos more than me, and it looked like it was muscle. Karen hugged him, and he leaned in to kiss her. But he didn't take his eyes off me. Bill, this is my new client, Jeff. Jeff, this is my husband, Bill. We shook hands. We both looked into each other's eyes and exchanged a firm but not excessive handshake. Bill spoke first. Let me guess, hard ending? Damn, you're good. You played? No. I fought in the heavyweight division at the University of Pennsylvania. Bill's smile was casual. He turned, and as he hugged Karen, his smile widened and his eyes sparkled. Are you hungry? He asked me. No, but thanks anyway. I'm going to go to the station and catch the train home. Karen, please send the contract when you can. I will sign it and return it to you immediately along with the money. Thank you for taking on my case. Is that the right word? Karen laughed. I shook Bill's hand. It was nice meeting you, Bill. You're one of the lucky ones, but I have a feeling you're both lucky. Take care and thanks for inviting me to dinner. You two give me hope. Bill looked at Karen and she simply whispered, I'll explain. I actually left with a smile on my face. I overslept on Sunday morning. The lack of sleep had taken its toll over the past few days. After making coffee, I turned on my laptop and connected the hard drive to download all of Grant's emails from his archived folders. I also decided not to wait for Karen's phone call, At a decent time, I will contact her on the cell number she gave me. I needed to know what happened on Saturday night after I left town. With a cup of coffee and a toasted bagel, I started reading emails. One thing I learned, Grant Martin was a sneak. Lois Taylor wasn't the only married woman he dated, but one email in Grant's outbox answered many of my questions. Dennis, it's time to repay your debt. For the past 4 months, I've been having sex with an old high society matron. This bitch has so much blue blood that she wouldn't even think of having anyone inferior to her. Hence her willingness to have sex with me, given my pedigree. What she doesn't know, of course, is that my idiot father disowned me 5 years ago. You're probably wondering why I'm even getting involved with some old, worn-out woman. 2 reasons. She is rich, and her daughter is a baby. But this old bitch is crazy. She's trying to break up her daughter's marriage to some creep so that my daughter and I can get married, and then the old woman and I can see each other and no one will suspect anything. Can you believe this shit? You can't make this up. Did I mention I work for her husband? And this guy is an ignorant jerk? The old bitch is putting pressure on her daughter to leave her husband, and I'm waiting in the wings to pick up the pieces. I can guarantee a very long engagement. The daughter may be a baby, but she's too conservative for my taste. And you know I'm not one to get married. At some point, this old bitch will probably want to talk to my old man. This shouldn't happen, and that's where you come to the rescue. I'm sending you a burner phone. Keep it charged. When I call you, answer and pretend that you are my father. I'll ask her to talk to you. Don't overreact it. Just hang up as quickly as you can. Remember, I'm counting on you just like you counted on me last year. Don't screw it up. Sorry about this James Bond crap. But I'm not taking any chances until I have a chance to make some money. Did I mention this old bitch is worth millions? Yes, that's what I did. Your brother, Grant. Reading this, I almost felt sorry for Lois. For less than a second, and then I realized that I was dealing with a nest of snakes. It was definitely not my thing. I was hoping someone with Karen's experience could help me figure out my next step. While I was waiting for Karen to call, I saw that Grant had logged into his computer and spent several hours surfing the internet, including logging into his work server and accessing several different programs. I observed and recorded everything he did. Now I had his user ID and password in the bank. By 2 p.m., I couldn't take it anymore and called Karen on her cell phone. Hello, Jeff. I was waiting for your call. Sorry to bother you on Sunday. Please apologize to your husband and children, but I need to know. What did you see last night after I left? You will be glad to know that your wife arrived by taxi just after 10. She got out of the taxi and headed towards the door. Grant walked with her, and it looked like he was trying to get her to let him in. She shook her head. He tried to kiss her, but she turned and he only kissed her on the cheek before she walked through the door. The doorman must have been given instructions because he stopped Grant from entering the door. He left, but only after cursing at the doorman. By that time, the taxi had already left. Grant must have already paid for the taxi, which is pretty cheeky of him. He shouldn't be denied too often. In other words, your wife was not swayed by his charm. She got home at a decent time and nothing untoward happened. Except that she went on a date with another man. I was glad Emma didn't sleep with that asshole, but I was still angry that our marriage was falling apart. Remember what you told me last night? Her mother set her up. It doesn't justify all of her behavior, but it does create a reason why she behaved the way she did. Okay, I'll give this to her, but you should hear this. Looks like Grant Martin is in love with Emma's mom, and Lois Taylor is ruining my marriage to keep Martin around. No kidding? This is just so shocking. I've been in this business for many years, and it never ceases to shock me how evil people can be. How did you find out? If I tell you, will we have some kind of client detective privilege? No, Jeff. If I'm called to court, I'll have to tell. So, if you're doing something illegal, you have to decide whether to share. I thought about it and realized, what the hell? And told Karen how I got the emails. She, like many people over the past decade, was stunned. I also told her that I have Martin's user ID and password to access personal accounts and bank transfers. Can you really take over this guy's computer and read his passwords? Heck, later this week, you're going to have to teach me how to protect myself from guys like you. but now I'm returning to my family. We're watching The Wizard of Oz, and the kids are looking at me with their "when are you going to hang up" eyes. Sorry, Karen. Call me tomorrow after you've dug into Martin's background and I'll tell you the rest. At this point, we hung up, and I again began to dig through the emails of Grant Martin and Lois Taylor. By Sunday evening, when Emma returned from her parents' place, I had all the information I needed, but I had no idea how I was going to use it. All my clothes and other personal items were also in the guest bedroom and bathroom. It didn't take her long to burst into the kitchen where I was sitting and drinking, yangling. "Jeff, where are your clothes?" I ignored her question. "How was your date last night?" There was an expression on Emma's face that I had never seen before. Did guilt, horror, deception affect him? "What are you talking about? I didn't go on a date." Emma said this with such conviction that I might have believed her if I had not seen with my own eyes how she got into that taxi. "What do you call it when you go to a performance with an unrelated member of the opposite sex? Maybe we should look it up in the dictionary." There was that look again. "What? Were you following me?" Not that this has anything to do with the matter, but yesterday I went to the city. I was going to try to convince you and your mom that I should take you to the play. I arrived at their building just in time to see you getting into a taxi with some guy. Who was that? Okay, I lied to her, but it sounded real, and I didn't want Emma to know what I was really up to or what I really knew. "Jeff, my mom got sick at the last minute, and one of my parents' friends was kind enough to pick me up. Nothing happened. I played dumb." "So, who is this good friend? Does he have a name?" "Grant Martin. He works for my father." I decided it was time to make her think. "Listen, Emma, this is bullshit. Your parents are trying to separate us. Think about it. I'll bet you $1,000 that your mother made a miraculous recovery on Sunday. This illness was faked. How come Grant Martin was available at the last minute? It's time for you to pull your head out of your ass and realize that our marriage is almost over." Emma stumbled back on her heels as if she had been shot. I didn't want this to turn into an argument, so I took the opportunity to leave the kitchen and head to the guest room. It was a restless night, and I hardly slept. As a result, I got up, left the house, and ended up in the office before 7. At 8, my cell phone rang, informing me that I had received a message. Checking my phone, I saw that Emma had sent 2 words, Sharon Roberts. I'm guessing Emma has already talked to her mother, and Lois has been filling her head with all sorts of nonsense. My marriage was quickly spinning in circles around the toilet, heading down the drain. Late Monday evening, Karen called me at work. "Do you have a place where we can talk in private?" I closed the door to my office. "Yes, I'm in my office." "What's the matter?" "First, tell me again about Grant Martin's position at the bank. I thought you had it all, so I focused on non-work matters." I looked at my notes. "As far as I can tell from his email and access permissions, he is a personal banker. He primarily focuses on trust accounts and other types of wealth management for high-net-worth clients. Yesterday, I watched him read emails that came from 3 different clients. 2 out of 3 asked him to transfer funds from different accounts to or from other accounts. Grant set up bank transfer instructions that transferred those funds as soon as the bank opened this morning. The money was supposed to be transferred this morning. I can confirm this later today when I sit down at my computer at home. I don't want to use my work computer for all this." "Did any of these transfers go to foreign banks?" "Firstly, they went to an account in France. Some rich guy is studying in Paris, and his father sent money for his tuition, room, and board." Karen seemed to think for a few seconds, and the line fell silent. She then started telling me what she had learned so far. "I spent the morning collecting dirt on our friend. First of all, the guy had problems in the past. I haven't been able to track them down yet, but it was bad enough that his family actually disowned him. He moved to New York to get away from what was happening in the West. Then I talked to a friend from the NYPD. Seems like last year, Buddy Martin, during college, I visited him for a long weekend. This friend, Dennis Riley, picked up a young lady at a bar and brought her back to Martin's apartment. The young lady had a little too much to drink, and asked Riley to call her a taxi. Riley refused and took her without consent. When Riley fell asleep, the woman left the apartment and went straight to the local station, charging Riley with... The police investigate, but Riley claims it was consensual, with Martin supporting Riley. Martin signs a statement accusing the woman of soliciting sexual intercourse. Martin goes so far as to claim that the woman accosted him after Riley went to bed. He said that's why she got so angry and screamed that she didn't agree to have sex, that she did it to spite them. 2 against 1. The district attorney refuses to bring charges against Riley, although there was some evidence of force. The cops wanted to charge the son of a bitch, but the DI said it would be a waste of time and money. So this guy gets away with it because Martin confirms his version of events? Like that. I opened the email from Grant to Dennis and read Karen's first sentence. Karen was silent for a second before answering. It looks like Riley owes Martin a big debt for lying. How would you like to hurt these 2 assholes a little? Without a doubt. What do you have in mind? Last night you told me how you managed to take over Martin's computer. How good are you? I mean, do you think you will be able to open foreign accounts using his identity? Given his position at the bank, do you think you will be able to transfer funds from his clients? I have computer and technical know-how, but I don't know how to open an account. And how illegal are you suggesting we do this? I don't want to participate in any theft of funds. If we do everything right, no one will lose money. I think we can get a firm grip on this guy, but it's something we should discuss in person. Can you meet tomorrow evening? I would also like to bring a friend with me. Karen, I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Why did you do this without any monetary gain? I agreed to pay you a few hundred just to watch Emma on a Saturday night and dig up some dirt on Grant Martin. Now all of a sudden we're opening accounts and transferring money and everything. What do you get from it? Because I can't afford to pay you much more, and I certainly can't afford to get caught or go to jail. This is personal, Jeff. Some asshole gave me something to drink and then took advantage of me. I was too embarrassed when I woke up to call the police or go to the hospital to get tested for controlled substances. When my roommate returned home from a trip that weekend, she found me crying in our room with no light on. She convinced me to go to the hospital and the police. Unfortunately, by the time they tested me, there were no signs of illegal substances in my body. This was many years ago. Now they have better tests. I filed a complaint against the guy anyway. But it was he said, she said thing, and nothing came of it. So, to answer your question, I'm doing this for that young woman who was hurt by Dennis Riley. She deserves to know that not every asshole gets away with a crime, and Grant Martin is going to jail for helping Riley. They're both scum. Karen's voice changed as she told her story. It was obviously still an emotional shock to her. I had only known Karen for a few days, spending less than 3 hours with her on a Saturday night and talking on the phone, but I already knew that I would help her bring these scum to justice. As my grandmother used to say, sometimes putting yourself in danger, even if you break the law, is the right thing to do. Before we hung up, Karen told me to send everything I dug up from Martin's computer, bank accounts, loans, mortgages, etc. I told her that she would receive it all in the evening. We agreed on a time and place for our date on Tuesday evening. I made up some excuse for Emma about working late, but it didn't matter as we danced around each other, barely spoke, and slept in separate bedrooms. I met Karen in a quiet pub on a Tuesday evening. As she promised, she had a friend with her. Karen introduced him only as Hank. If I had to guess, Hank was a former employee of one of the alphabet agencies, most likely the one from Langley. After I told Hank that I now had access to Grant Martin's computer and access to his personal and professional banking systems, he and Karen let me in on their plan. First, you buy a plane ticket to Dubai for Martin using his credit card. Secondly, open an account in Dubai for Martin. I'll give you instructions. Dubai is one of the most friendly havens for illicit funds since the Swiss were hit so hard by the U.S. Treasury. Third, arrange bank transfers of several million to accounts in Dubai that should be received upon opening the business. Here, I interrupted Hank and turned to Karen. Wait, I said don't steal. Hank answered for Karen. We will make sure that none of the funds leave the country. You will make one very minor mistake in the bank transfer instructions. This error will delay the transfer and make it appear that Martin attempted theft and screwed up. Fine? I thought about it, then I decided, Fine. What then? According to what you found out, Martin has a line of credit for the purchase of housing in his condominium, which has over 100,000 undrawn funds. He also has another 60,000 in his brokerage account. Both of these accounts will be involved. 2 bank transfers to an account in Dubai, but they will go through without errors. Do you have problems with this? No, not if his money goes abroad. Well, having him bled dry on this side of the Atlantic will undermine his ability to get decent representation, which will go a long way toward helping us defeat his goofy buddy Dennis Riley. Karen took this opportunity to add the next step, which leads to the last step. You send an email from Grant to Dennis. Here, read this. Karen handed me the proposed email. Dennis, forget about the rich old woman. I have better things to do. By tomorrow, I'll be rich enough to last a long time, at least until I find another old woman with more money than brains. It means leaving the country, but there is nothing here worth sticking around for. In some ways, I should blame you, or thank you, depending on how things turn out. Today, some investigator called me and asked questions about your little misadventure last year. You should have learned your lesson at USC like I did. Actually, get a girl's approval before you post that shit, because next time I won't be there to bust my ass for you. I'll contact you and let you know where I'll land. Pretty sure the feds will be monitoring this email the day after tomorrow, so don't bother replying. I will delete this as soon as it is posted. I advise you to do the same. Your brother, Grant. I finished reading and looked up, smiling. From what I've read in his emails to friends, you get his style. What's this about university? Karen answered. Today I found out why Martin's family disowned him. Apparently they had sex, which involved 2 of our idiots. The girl was not under any illegal substances, but she did drink a little at the party. She had a reputation as an easygoing but unapproachable girl. The girl committed suicide a week after the event. The Martin family paid the young woman's family $250,000 to hush it up, but turned around and disowned Grant for his involvement. Rumor has it that this was not the first time they used their money to keep their son out of trouble. Karen's story strengthened my resolve to put Martin and Riley away. Okay, following Hank's instructions. I can do all of this, but we need to make sure Grant is in his apartment and not on the computer when this all happens. How do we do this? Grant will be busy. Leave it to us. Can you do this tomorrow evening? No problem. What will happen on Thursday? We'll make sure Grant is arrested early Thursday morning, before he has a chance to look like he's going to work. As it turns out, he might as well have caught his plane that morning. It's a pleasure to work with professionals. Karen and Hank were consummate professionals. Hank's guidance through each step produced the desired results. Grant had a new account in Dubai, and his credit card was used to purchase first-class tickets for a late-morning flight to Dubai. His line of credit was opened, as was his brokerage account. The transfers were supposed to arrive on Thursday morning. I selected one of Grant's wealthiest clients and arranged for the transfer of $5 million by Thursday morning. But the message contained one simple error. The message was never sent. How did they make sure Martin would be in his apartment and busy all night? This was achieved with the help of an expensive woman who I assume Hank used in his past life, working for Langley or someone else. This beautiful woman happened to bump into Grant as he was leaving work and convinced him that she should buy him a drink to apologize for being so clumsy. Grant, being the self-absorbed egomaniac that he is, assumed that it was his charming personality and gorgeous looks that convinced this young beauty to have one more drink at his apartment. This is where experience in subterfuge shows its value. A woman claimed that she was once beaten by a guy who seemed nice at first. She swore it would never happen again and wanted to see some form of identification. Grant thought, "What the hell?" and pulled out his driver's license. Everyone knows that a driver's license is bullshit. Half the people in this town wear fake ones just in case. Show me your passport. Now, if Grant had been thinking with anything other than his little head, he would have doubted the lady's logic. But he thought again, "What the hell?" and walked into his office, unlocked his desk, grabbed his passport, and handed it to her. She stared at it demonstratively, even flipping through the embossed pages, making sweet comments. She closed the passport, placed it on the hallway table, grabbed Grant by the tie, and carried him to bed until she left at 6 on Thursday morning and essentially disappeared. Grant Martin opened his door at 8 o'clock on Thursday morning to find two of New York's best detectives on the other side. Despite his protestations of innocence, he was, figuratively speaking, tied with a small bow. It did not help. Both detectives noticed Grant's passport lying on the table in the hallway. "Heading somewhere, Mr. Martin?" the detective asked as he handcuffed Grant. Of course, Grant knew he was being set up. He just didn't know who or how. None of the girls he had ever been with had the knowledge necessary to do this. At least that much he could find out. All traces of viruses on his and Lois's computers were removed from their systems. In fact, just to be sure, I sent a command to wipe his hard drive before the police showed up that fateful morning. It looked as if Grant had done it himself to erase all traces of his crimes. Police eventually checked Grant's internet service provider to obtain copies of his emails. That's where they found an email to Dennis admitting to lying to cops, and a fake email to Riley, explaining his plans to leave the country with his ill-gotten gains. Karen's police contacts were very helpful. They offered to drop charges related to his previous false statement if Grant testified against Dennis. Like the scumbag that he is, Grant cut a deal, and Dennis Riley was extradited back to New York to face the charges. Of course, when Dennis learned of Grant's betrayal, the two jackals turned on each other, and it was very satisfying to hear them hack each other to ribbons. Grant Martin received no support from his family. It's actually funny that his mother and father spent so much money getting him out of trouble when he was guilty, but didn't lift a finger when he was actually innocent of the crime. No matter how much he protested his innocence, he was found guilty of theft and various other related charges. Grant Martin will spend at least the next 4 years in prison. With the help of Grant's testimony, Dennis Riley was sentenced to 10 years. By the time Grant testified, he and Riley hated each other so much that Grant was particularly frank in describing the brutality of the crime. All this happened over the next year. While these events were unfolding, I had more personal issues to deal with. The first thing was to burn this mother-in-law. On the day of Grant Martin's arrest, I made an appointment with my father-in-law. "Mr. Taylor, I need to show you something. Some of them will hurt Emma if I give them to her. If she believes me, some may hurt you. I don't know you well enough to know for sure, but I'm sure you don't want your daughter to get hurt. So, I give this to you to do as you see fit." I hired a private investigator to find out why my marriage recently began to collapse. I have no idea how he obtained this material, but I hope you are as shocked by the content as I was. I deliberately only used emails from Lois's account, not wanting anyone to know that I had access to Martin's computer because he would claim he was set up. Why give credence to his statements? Jonathan Taylor carefully took the folder of emails from Lois to Grant from my hands. He sat back in his chair and read for the next 15 minutes, pausing only to pour us both a cup of coffee from the pot on his desk. Maybe it's my working-class snobbery coming through, but I was impressed that he actually poured the coffee himself rather than ringing some secret bell for the servants to come and do it. It wasn't the first time he surprised me that day. I think he did it to pull himself together. He seemed especially gloomy. Having finished reading the last page, he put the folder down and stared at me. "I thought I asked you not to hurt my little girl. Knowing that her mother used her in this way will hurt Emma." "Sorry, sir. In that case, don't show it. I promise not to bring up any of this during our divorce." "So, are you planning to divorce Emma? This will hurt her too." "Not my option, sir. Your wife seems hell-bent on ending my marriage to Emma, and right now she seems to have convinced Emma that this is the right thing to do. First of all, can we stop calling ourselves sir? My name is Jonathan, and my friends call me Jack. I'm guessing you don't want to call me Dad, so please could you start calling me Jack?" I was stunned, but old habits die hard. "Yes, sir." He looked at me and smiled for just a second, then asked, "Tell me more, because I can't understand how Lois suddenly gained such control over Emma." "What's happened?" I told Jack. what I had learned over the past 2 weeks. Lois told Emma that she gave up her career for Emma, that she was too young when she got married and had Emma, and that you forbade her from pursuing a career. She blamed it on Emma. I got Jack's attention and decided to come clean. Sorry, but the next part may seem harsh. Emma feels like she had no relationship with you or her mother. When she saw how my family interacted, she felt something was missing. All the trappings of wealth, riding lessons, schools in Europe, whatever, did not compensate for this. When her mother started paying attention to her, Emma jumped at the chance to have this relationship. I didn't know if I had crossed the line. Jack was hard to understand, but I think that's what makes him a successful businessman. He picked up a folder from his desk and suddenly turned into a real person. Do you have any idea what it's like when you turn 60 and realize your life is crap? No, of course not. Right now, I'm just ranting. Emma's mother gave up her career. What a joke. Only if they have openings for manicures and spa treatments. For years, I had to listen to her tell everyone about her childhood dream of playing women's professional tennis. You really have to be good at tennis to make a living at it. And after 45 years of playing, Lois still can't hit her backhand. I spent 90% of my entire adult life working for this bank, doing everything I could to make it the most successful and trusted bank of its kind in the Northeast. That's how I was raised. We were a different generation than yours. Few of us are our wives' best friends. When we have free time, we head to the golf course to make connections that will help the business. I spent more time with my quartet of golfers than I did with my wife or daughter. And you know what? My wife wanted it this way. She showed no interest when I suggested she take golf lessons. She dissuaded me when I suggested taking up tennis. In fact, she said that it would limit her ability to improve. In the back of my mind, I thought maybe this would limit her ability to have sex with one of her tennis partners. But until today, I had no real evidence of adultery. I was blissfully unaware. Jonathan's frankness shocked me, and all I could say was, "I'm sorry that I'm the one bringing this to your attention." "No, Jeff. I thank you for giving me this. A little sex on the side is one thing. It's quite another to be so cunning that she's willing to sacrifice Emma's happiness to keep her lover close. And with one of my employees." Let's talk about cuckolding. Every day this little shit walked past me, knowing he was sleeping with my wife. Well, he won't be doing that for a while because he was arrested this morning for stealing from one of our clients and giving false information in an old case. If everything we heard from the police this morning is true, Grant Martin will be in jail for a while. And Lois? Well, unfortunately, Lois has her own trust fund worth millions that actually works in my favor in the divorce. She'll park her ass at the spa or the tennis court crying crocodile tears. Some gigolo will pick her up and I can easily be replaced. She will lose a little social status. Some other wives will avoid her because they will be protecting their territory. We live in a dog-eat-dog world. She will also lose her relationship with her daughter, but from what I read here, Jack took the folder, she probably doesn't care that much. And Emma? I wonder if it's too late to start a relationship with my daughter. I love her, I really do, but I let her mother control our relationship. Another thing I owe Lois for. I swear to God, I have to figure out some way to make Lois pay for all the pain she's caused. Maybe not right away, but somehow. In the meantime, Jeff, I'm going to ask you for help. You say you love Emma. If you can put this behind you, do you think you can restore your marriage? I don't know, sir. I mean, Jack, it is logical that what happened was not her fault. She was manipulated by her mother, and it helps that she didn't go to bed with Martin. At least that's what I think. But emotionally, this is the hardest part. I'm not like you. I just showed you evidence of your wife's adultery and duplicity, and you didn't shed a tear. You got a little angry, but kept your composure. Me. When Emma walked out the door that second weekend, I cried for the first time in my adult life. I don't know how you do it. Jonathan Taylor looked at me and made a decision. Because I began to restrain my emotions more than 40 years ago. Let me tell you a story that few have heard. When I first graduated from college, I enrolled in the Naval Flight School. It was hard, but I passed the OCS exams. I was so proud of myself that day when those bars were attached to my uniform in front of my parents. I was in flight training when my life became hell. I screwed up and crashed, broke both legs and my back, but my radar intercept officer, Ted Andrews, was killed. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital. When I was able to walk without crutches, I went to visit Ted's parents to apologize. I will never forget their faces as they looked at the man responsible for their son's death. I returned to base a broken man and cried for days. I was of no use to the Navy. They discharged me with honors and sent me home. My parents were kind. They didn't place any additional blame on me. They sent me to Harvard so I could get my MBA and put all this behind me. But not a week goes by that I don't think about what I should have done that day to prevent the accident. I wasn't drunk or hungover or anything like that. It was just a mistake that cost a man his life. And it was my mistake. Ted's parents never wanted to hear from me again, but I dedicated part of my life to his memory. In addition to volunteer work, a $10,000 donation is made each year to both the USO and one of Gary Sinise's foundations for wounded soldiers. So by and large, cheating on your wife seems like a small thing. I listened in silence, and when he finished, I looked at my father-in-law. I saw a man with a huge load on his shoulders, which he had been carrying for too long. I knew there was something I could do to relieve this burden, and that's when I realized what I was going to do. As I navigate the current circumstances, it's important to remember how out of character Emma's recent behavior has been compared to who she is. This can only be explained by her need to finally connect with her mother, who has never shown the usual love between mother and child. My thoughts went back to the first time I really talked to Emma that summer 8 years ago. I was taking a break from my NGO duties, walking past Columbus Square, when I noticed a familiar face sitting on a bench. The young lady I recognized from the office looked like she could use a friend. I took a chance by walking up to her and introducing myself. "Sorry, I saw you earlier in the office. I'm Jeff Parker and I work in the IT department." I extended my hand. The young woman looked into my eyes and there was a sign of recognition in them, but it was also obvious that she had been crying. I started to feel bad for disrupting what could have been a private moment. Instead, a hint of a smile appeared on her lips. "Yes, I saw you there. I'm Emma Taylor." She took my hand. "Can I sit down, or do you want to be alone?" "No, please sit down." I took another chance. "It's obvious that you were crying. Want to share?" Emma was silent for a second. "Have you heard today's news about 2 girls in Sudan? One NGO-supported charity has established schools for girls in Sudan and other countries in Africa and the Middle East. Girls were taught reading and writing, as well as housekeeping skills and health education. The local population did not always approve of teaching these skills to women. No, I spent the whole day with my head in the server bank. This is the first time I've left the server room all day. Yesterday, the girls' grandparents pulled 2 sisters out of class in Juba. They were upset that the girls' parents allowed them to read and write. It was claimed that this was a Western plot to turn the girls against Allah. This morning, we received news that the sisters were mutilated. All this was done with the approval of the local imam. I didn't say a word in response. I have heard of this barbaric practice among some Muslim tribes, but until today, I had never heard of it being used on women. Emma cried again before continuing. "What I can't understand is how people who claim to follow God can think it's okay to destroy what that same God created." She paused. "Do you think we are doing something good there? Or are we just making more of a mess?" I won't pretend to know the answers to your questions, Emma. But my grandmother taught me a thing or two when I was growing up. I was visiting my grandparents on their farm when a big storm hit. We saw a big funnel cloud, and the 3 of us were trying to get all their chickens into the barn. We probably had 20 of their 25 chickens in the barn when Grandpa closed the barn door and told me to go down to the basement. I started to protest and couldn't understand why we abandoned the others. My grandmother set me on the right path. "Whenever you try to save everyone," she said, "you'll probably end up saving no one." Emma looked at me with her beautiful eyes. She really listened to me with interest. I think you could apply Grandma's philosophy to what your organization does. Try to save as many of these young women as possible from a life without hope. You'll never save them all, but you can't lose sight of the positives as long as you save as many as you do. Your grandmother seems to be a wise woman. But what do you mean by you? Don't you work for an NGO? Not really. I am on loan from KPMG. When I'm done transforming the systems, I'll go on another assignment with another company. Such is the life of a consultant. I could be in California or Virginia in 2 months. It must be hard to make friends. I can't imagine such a nomadic life. I've only lived in 2 places in my entire life, here in Manhattan and where I go to school, Princeton. Even my preparatory school was 5 kilometers from the university. You use the present tense. Are you still in school? Yes, I have 1 more year left at Princeton. I'm here for a summer internship. Does this mean that you work here without pay? Yes, but that's not a problem. The only thing my father believes in is community service. He gives me a decent allowance in addition to paying for my studies. Money is not such a big problem. When I graduate next spring, I'll have the chance to try living on my own. Until then, I will focus on my studies and help here as an intern. That must be nice. As soon as I said it, I realized how sarcastic it might have sounded to her, but Emma didn't bat an eyelid. This is true. I won't deny it. I have friends in school who need to watch every penny, or who borrow money to pay their tuition and rent. Having disposable income takes the worry out of being a student. As Emma spoke, I realized how different this woman was from many of the wealthy people I had met at Wharton and since. During our 30-minute conversation, Emma expressed sympathy for the 2 strangers in Sudan and to his fellow students at school. I later learned that on the same day as our conversation in the park, Emma had been hit by a taxi on her way to work. The incident left her with a huge bruise on her thigh, but this was not known until several days later. She was a woman worth meeting, but before I could say a word, she surprised me once again. Jeff, since you said it's hard to make friends while traveling around the planet, would you like to have dinner with me sometime soon? Of course, I said yes, and that's how Emma and I began our friendship. The friendship that blossomed into a relationship is now questioned due to her mother's malicious interference. After leaving my father-in-law's office, I returned home by train. Emma walked through the door an hour later to find dinner on the stove, a bottle of Breth Merlot, and a dozen red roses on the table. It took her a few moments to notice the 3 place settings on the table. I see we are expecting guests. Who is this? Your father. My father? What about my mother? Did something happen to Mom? Please tell me. No, nothing happened to your mother. Your father and I just want to talk to you about something. Go wash your face and he'll be here any minute. Thank God Jack called them. I don't think I could hold Emma off for long. Perhaps my plans for a quiet meal were naive. The wine was poured and the pasta was placed on plates, but as soon as we sat down, Emma wanted to know why her father was there without her mother. Jack fell on his sword and became the one to tell Emma what her mother had been doing for the last few months. Emma became hysterical, screaming, "No, no, no," until Jack removed her from the table and sat with her on the couch, Emma crying on his chest. I cleaned up the kitchen and gave them some privacy. I took Samson for a walk. When I returned half an hour later, Emma greeted me at the door, her eyes still red. Jeff, I'm so sorry. Please tell me that you want to stay together. You're welcome, Jeff. I want to, Emma. I never stopped loving you and wanting to be your husband. My biggest fear was that you had changed your mind and were planning to leave me. I was so stupid, but I told you how important it was for me to connect with my mother. It's over now. What about your father? My father wants to develop relations, but he is afraid that I am suspicious. I'll relate to his motives, given what happened to his mother. We won't rush things, but first he wants me to work on the damage I've done to our marriage. Father is going to take a long vacation soon. He would like to take us both to an island in the Bahamas while we can take a break from work. He wants to get to know us both better. That's great, baby. We'll discuss the details later, but for now it's just greet. Let's go try to eat. I left dinner warm in the oven. The pasta is no longer al dente, but I bet it will taste great. The three of us sat down at the table again and took the first step on the long road to healing. Old habits die hard, and for my father-in-law this was no exception. Despite his best intentions of taking a full 2 weeks off and spending them with us on the island, it took almost a year. Meanwhile, he spent almost every weekend with us, growing closer to the daughter he regretted never really knowing. Like me, when Emma and I first met, he was pleasantly surprised to find her to be such a lovely, selfless young lady. Jack's presence in our lives helped Emma recover from her mother's betrayal. Emma and I spent these months piecing together the pieces of our marriage. It made me feel better that Emma never cheated on me. She never lost her moral compass. The evening of the play with Grant was chaste. It wasn't that Grant didn't try his best to make something happen. He just ran into the wrong woman, something he wasn't used to with all the available women he usually tried to sleep with. Emma and I ended up spending a week on Cat Island in the Bahamas with Jack. Emma spent 4 more days after I left, which gave her some time alone with her father. I needed to get back to work due to my new responsibilities. My project was completed on time and within budget. My reward was the coveted title of CIO, as well as a nice bonus and salary increase. By the way, about cones. Emma needed to be convinced that she could still wear a bikini on the island, even with such a beautiful baby bump. Paul Jonathan Parker, named after both grandfathers, was born a little more than a year after that pasta dinner. Claire. Emma Parker. Claire was my mother's name 2 years after PJ. Jack retired when he was 63 and did his best to spoil his grandchildren. He even bought a small apartment nearby, which he uses as a second home. Things weren't going so well for Lois. Jack divorced her shortly after we met that Thursday afternoon. It may have cost him a fortune in attorney fees, but due to evidence of her attempting to break up her daughter's marriage with her lover involved, and the fact that Lois had millions in trust funds, Jack was able to leave Lois without paying her alimony and maintaining enough assets for his retirement to be comfortable. When news of Lois's duplicity became known to society ladies, she became an outcast. Everyone knew she was a snake, and they just had no idea how low she could crawl. Lois first moved to Palm Beach, but her reputation followed her. She was denied membership in local tennis clubs, and during her 9 months in Florida, she never made a friend or anyone pretending to be a friend. Palm Springs was next. Nothing helps get rid of an unpleasant odor like several thousand kilometers. Although Lois was allowed to join the beautiful people, they may have been swayed by her millions. She could not compete with young wives for the attention of men suitable for sex. Lois made the mistake many aging women with low self-esteem make. She went to a plastic surgeon. Unfortunately, she came out looking like one of those crazy clowns with a weird smile and crazy eyes. I only know about the horror of her facelift because 2 years after Claire was born, Lois came knocking on our door. It took me a few moments to recognize the man standing on the other side of the threshold when I opened the front door. I didn't even open the screen door, I just spoke through the screen. "Lois, what are you doing here?" The lack of friendliness in my voice could not be more obvious. "I would like to see my daughter and my grandchildren." "Lois, you are not welcome here. No one in this house wants to see you or ever acknowledge your pathetic existence. Now go away." It took every ounce of self-control not to scream. "You have no right to prevent me from seeing Emma and the children. Open this door." "Lois, you don't understand. I don't forbid them to see you. Emma doesn't want to see you, and she'll do everything in her power to keep you from infecting our children with your vitriol." I started to close the door just as Lois opened the screen door. I stopped for a moment. "My God, what did you do to your face?" It just came out of my mouth. Lois was taken aback by my comment, long enough for me to close the door. She didn't give up that easily. The next day was Monday. Lois assumed I would be at work and called home. Emma later told me that their conversation was short and to the point. Emma confirmed that Lois was persona non grata in our home and anywhere around the children. Lois offered Emma a carrot. If she is able to visit her grandchildren, they will receive $10,000 toward their college fund for each of their first 10 visits. Emma refused the bribe. Lois came to kindergarten. This was enough for us to get an injunction. Lois tried to call Jack to ask for his help, acting out, "We've been married for 30 years, blah, blah, blah." Jack laughed and hung up. Last we heard, Lois was back in Palm Springs and hooking up with some gigolo who took a good chunk of her money. How sad. Sometimes bad things happen to bad people. Which reminds me of my latest lawsuit against Grant Martin. Using a false name, I sent Martin an email. It was a short poem, only 8 lines, and it read, "He's innocent," your lawyer said. But the jury came to a different conclusion. For the crime that put you in the dock, there are forces that come to their senses. I'm innocent, you admitted to yourself again. But karma and justice went hand in hand, and by now, asshole, you understand that you just messed with the wrong person.